The superannuation system in Australia, as far as the tax goes, we have contributions going through, and this is usually from employers to employees, and it's based on the salary of the individual. And if you're self-employed or any other circumstances, then you have some other form of pre-tax contributions that you are making. So when it comes to any pre-tax contribution, so by that we mean that these funds have not hit your bank account. You are basically contributing to your super prior to that happening. 15% is the taxation in Australia. So all that ever goes in is 85% into your super. This goes to the ATO. And any returns that you get, the estimate is again 15% tax that you pay on your super return. So if you've got $100,000 inside your super fund and you get a return of 10% for the financial year or the year, that's $10,000 in terms of a return. And on that, again, you pay 15% tax. If you think about the 2 points of taxation, if let's just say the average salary about $80,000 and you got a 10% super guarantee coming through, so super contributions, and $8,000 is the contributions there. So what we have at 15%, the tax estimate on that is $1,200 on contributions, and then on the $10,000 at 15%, again, you got $1,500 of tax. So when you add these two up together, you got a total tax bill of $2,700 estimated. And there are structures in Australia in terms of superannuation. There are investments that can be put together inside your super fund that when the structure has the capability of doing what it needs to do, and you have the right investments in there, then you can start to chip away at this 15% tax. So you can make a really big difference long term. And this portion is pretty stable in terms of the contribution tax. It's down to your salary. But what's forever going to be going up, if you keep working and your funds keep growing, is the investment return tax. So this portion is just going to keep going up. So it's a really big area that we work with clients to make sure that they're completely informed about their opportunities at hand, and they are in the right structure to have the best outcome when it comes to managing the superannuation tax. So you might be thinking, well, what is a potential solution to managing this, and what is the difference? So where most Australians sit, we refer to it as a master trust structure. Now, you probably see a lot of ads on TV, retail funds, industry funds, all that marketing gimmick and marketing ways to get people to think that there is a real big world out there when it comes to industry versus retail. But at the end of the day, whatever it is, industry, retail funds, what's important is the structure of the fund. And most super funds are a master trust structure. So irregardless of what you ask, what the provider is at the top, we want to really focus on what the structure is, because the structure is half the story when it comes to being able to manage this tax, not the provider's name. And then in addition to that, like I mentioned before, it's the investments that you have inside your super fund that can look after the other 50% to manage that taxation. So the alternative structure in Australia, a lot of Australians make a really big leap when they think, all right, I want a bit more control, I want to do a bit more with my super, I want more investment options, and they jump into a self-managed super fund. And that's a really big leap, because that requires a lot of inclination, it requires a lot of ongoing management, and it's not a super fund that sits in the background. There is another structure in the middle, referred to as a wrap super fund, where a lot of the features that it has mimics what a master trust is. So the background nature of it, the fact that you have a trustee, so provider, another name, at the top looking after everything for you. But at the same time, you get a lot of the benefits also from the self-managed super fund world, where it's control, investment options. So the average master trust super fund, again, retail or industry, has about, on average, probably 5 to 10 different investment options. In a wrap super fund, you have potentially 100 to 1,000 investment options. And another thing is the fact that you have, again, a trustee at the top. So you have a provider at the top, a big organization, a big company that would look after the admin side of your super. So what I'm trying to get at is the fact that this is the part that is important, the structure. Too many Australians sit there and think about this portion, which gets you minuscule outcome at best, because all you're doing is moving across and maybe saving a few $100 in fees, or not actually comparing what that provider's investment options are, again, risk-adjusted returns. So what is the big difference in these two different structures? We're not going to focus on this because this is a whole different world, self-managed super funds. We're going to still try to keep it pretty similar in terms of the running structure, which a master trust and a wrap super fund are. The main difference is when it comes to taxation, you have what are called tax offsets in Australia that come from Australian shares. Now, not all Australian shares offer tax offsets. Some do, some are fully franked, some are not. And it's basically the franking credit that is the term used for the tax offsets. So in Australia, what happened in the 80s, you had the Keating government, if I can spell that, Keating government. He basically and his colleagues thought, well, if, as an example, if an Australian goes and invests in a company, or anyone in an Australian company, as an example, you have maybe like an ANZ, a BHP, just as examples. These companies are already paying the company tax on their profits at 30%. And if investors are investing into these businesses, it's partially their contributions that is allowing ANZ and BHP to generate these profits. So indirectly, these investors are getting taxed at 30%. So if the likes of ANZ and BHP retain some of the profits, which is usually 50%, just on average, for a big cap business that's been around for a while, and the other 50% they'll reward investors in the way of income, or what we refer to as dividend payouts. And attached to these dividend payouts are the franking credits. And depending on which business, it could be fully franked, 100%, or a bit less in terms of the franking. And there are obviously some companies that don't pay any franking credits. So if this wasn't the case, if the Keating government didn't intervene, once the profits pool are paid out to the investors, again, the investor would be taxed at 15%. If it's super, or taxed at their marginal tax rate, if it's outside of super. So we're not going to be concentrating on the marginal tax rate. Today it's all about superannuation, so we're looking at this space. So if the super fund member, their super fund, had investments inside Australian shares, which most super funds do by default. 20 to 30% sits in Australian shares by default, and they paid 15% tax on investment income that they received. What was happening prior to the Keating government's involvement is you're getting taxed once up here indirectly at the company tax rate at 30%, and then again at the super fund level. So it's a double taxation that was happening. So the idea of the franking credits were to basically these businesses, these Australian shares would come with a 30% tax offset to stop the double taxation. And these tax offsets is what would be the tool that certain Australians use to start managing this super tax at 15%, because those tax offsets would work to offset any tax there is in the fund. So it's pretty powerful, and the main difference is in a master trust super fund, which we just went through before, the tax offsets are bundled into these units that you own inside your super fund. And the problem with it is that it's not transparent. There could be potential dilution issues. There is entitlement challenges that come with it, because the trustee basically meets their own tax obligations first in most instances, and once that's all taken care of, then those tax offsets are then distributed to all the members that sits inside the funds. And that can be pretty uncomfortable for certain investors to think, well, I need to have a much better idea of what's happening with my tax offsets. The difference in a wrap super fund is the fact that inside a wrap super fund, yes, you have your provider sitting at the top. You have your investments underneath it, so the units that you own. But the very big difference is that you have a centralized cash account inside your inside a wrap super fund, which everything flows in and out from. And those tax offsets that we just spoke about before, that are bundled into the units, are unbundled inside a wrap super fund from the units that you own. So it's a big difference, and they're paid directly to your centralized cash account. So a very, very big difference. And this is the way that it would work in a self-managed super fund. So a lot of Australians jump ship and jump in the deep end to get access to this sort of level of control and tax strategies and so forth. But the structure that sits in the middle, a wrap super fund, still gives you a lot of those capabilities that we spoke about. And it allows you to start chipping away that 15% tax, because it's what you're entitled to. It's just what the government set up. What you shouldn't be getting taxed twice. And if you're sitting in a master trust, you need to dig deeper to understand how your super fund is doing this side of it all. And with most master trust super funds, again, regardless of whether it's a retail or a master trust, if you were to call up your provider and say, what was my tax offset figure for last year, the year before, what was my franking credit, they couldn't tell you. They could not tell you that over the phone, because like I said, it's a bundled nature. However, in a wrap super fund, it's the reporting is there. You can see exactly what was happening. All the figures are there for you to assess. So big difference there, and it makes a really big difference. And you might be thinking, why? Why would it make so much of a difference? And how could this be a crucial way to grow my super? Well, from that 2,500, or the tax that we spoke about before, was it 2,500, 2,700? So 2,700 of tax we spoke about, and that's only someone that's got around $100,000 and sitting on the average wage. Could be much more than that. So from that 2,700, if you could lower that every year, and keep another $1,000 inside your super over 20 years invested, just as an estimate, just this is for educational purposes, at 10% over the long term, as opposed to those funds exiting your super with as tax over 20 years. I'm just doing the calculation now. It's potentially another $57,000 to 7.5 inside super. If you made it 30 years, it makes a really big difference. And most people that have around 100,000 would potentially have 30 years as opposed to 20. So 30 years at 10%, it's about 164,000, potentially more inside your super fund by holding on to just another $1,000 using tax offsets annually. So this is only $1,000 though. We have plenty of cases where our clients have saved thousands and thousands of dollars of tax annually because their tax bills are around $12,000, $13,000, and they're saving 50, 70, 100% of that. And in a really good year, your tax offsets that you receive from your Australian shares could be more than the 15% tax, because if you think about it, the tax offset's 30%, super tax is only 15%, so you're already in a positive space. And if you're in a position where your tax offsets are higher than your tax bill, then it just becomes an ATO refund. So very powerful. So not only do you not pay the 15% super tax, you receive credit for the year. And that, again, if you want to put the calculations to that, it's huge. So 1,000 is basically just really a conservative figure in terms of what you can be doing. And this is how super funds should be working. But like I said, because of the structure of most super funds, and when I say most, pretty much all super funds, if you have not made a conscious decision to move into a self-managed super fund or a wrapped super fund, you're in a master trust super fund, again, irregardless of this side of it. The way they run is they are a bundled structure in nature, and these are the sort of limitations that the members are exposed to. Hey guys, if you're enjoying these videos, please like, subscribe, and click the bell button, as we are dropping a video like this every other day on YouTube. And if you got a question, please leave a comment and I'll do my best to get to it.